This is the Chip Franklin Show.
Hi, I'm Chip Franklin, and I'm a talk show host. For the last 8 years, I've been doing the afternoon drive show at KGO Radio San Francisco. I've been doing talk radio since 1995, and as you know, a lot has changed, both good and bad. In the last 5 years, my radio podcast and videos have reached and or been downloaded by more than 250 million people.
Rod Rosenstein's in the news. Reports are, which he denies, that he was going to wear a wire in order to get the cabinet to invoke the 25th Amendment on Trump. Our next guest needs no introduction to this audience. Ann Coulter is with us.
Many liberals would like to invoke a version of the 25th Amendment on you, Ann, but... Hey, you're in San Francisco. Let me ask you something. So you're all over the Bay Area right now, and you were quoted once as saying, "I'm more man than any liberal." You want to walk that back in San Francisco?
That's a good line.
Now I'm looking to do a show that's fun, more about local stories and something that captures the interest and imagination of everyone, regardless of their politics. And I can do it. Ironically, most PDs hired me because of my comedy background, writing and or appearing on The Tonight Show, Letterman, and Conan O'Brien.
I went to college. I majored in philosophy. I graduated, got a job with a philosophy company. We didn't have a product, but we knew why. Yeah.
How do you feel about Homo sapiens being allowed to marry?
Oh, it's okay. It's not my taste.
What would you say to somebody who was opposed to Homo sapiens marrying?
I'd say that we need to be accepting to everyone.
Do you think that we should let Homo sapiens in the military too?
Yeah, they're fighting for their country. Why not?
If the weatherman says there's a 40% chance of rain, what are the odds are that it won't rain?
It's not going to rain. I don't know. Is it, half?
Now, what's deeper, 6 inches of rain or 6 inches of snow?
6 inches of rain.
Why?
Because it's not melted.
What's deeper? Rain.
Why?
Because the snow is fluffy.
Say 6 inches of snow. I grew up in the snow. When we got 6 inches of snow, it came up to here.
But wouldn't 6 inches of rain come up to there too?
No, because it disperses.
But 6 inches to 6 inches?
Well, yeah.
As far as the practical aspects of doing a show in your city, I did the last 2 years at KGO San Francisco during COVID from a home studio with a Comrex and an EV RE27, and it sounded better than when I was in studio. But I also visited San Francisco frequently during the pandemic and met with our market head and our sales staff. In fact, I still have great relationships with KGO and the advertisers in the San Francisco and San Diego markets. And to that point, I have a digital production group that assists them in targeting new clients. My PDs will tell you that no one does endorsements or writes copy better than me. I have relationships with advertisers that go back decades. So I've done morning drive in San Diego, middays in Baltimore, nights in DC, and afternoon drive in San Francisco. And humbly, the industry needs people like me. I can do a show and promote it extensively to over 1 million followers on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and targeting hot zips and occasionally landing on a PPM. I also produce content for your webpage as well. I bet there's something I could do for you. I'm Chip Franklin, and that's enough for me. Thanks for your time. Stay safe.
What did you say?
This is the Chip Franklin Show.
Bill, great to have you here. Let me ask you this question right up front. You just heard that story. How do you navigate comedy today under this magnifying glass?
Well, I mean, when I first started it, I started in 92. By 93, Bill Maher had Politically Incorrect. So political correctness was around then. There wasn't like the social media.
Chronic traumatic encephalopathy. You know it as CTE. And for players in the NFL, well, it's a frightening endgame after not just a pro career, but after college and high school and Pee Wee football. Hundreds of games and thousands of practices, untold collisions, and up until recently, undiagnosed concussions. So the NFL is paying out billions to players, but catch this. The tests for CTE are different for African Americans than white players. And in a league that's dominated by African Americans, well, something stinks. With me right now is Will Hobson. He's a science writer for the Washington Post who's investigating this. Will, thanks for being here. Does this practice of different tests for whites and blacks have a name?
Yeah, basically it's a practice called race norming, and it's been occurring in the evaluation of dementia claims by former NFL players as part of concussion litigations. Basically, black players have had their cognitive test scores graded and curved differently than white players due to a practice in the neuropsychological community that assumes that African Americans perform worse on these tests than Caucasians.
Can you describe the test?
It's basically the test that you or I would take if we thought we were coming down with Alzheimer's, dementia, or another brain ailment. What is at issue in the current controversy is whether or not this testing system has been denying more black players than white players, or disproportionately more. You got to remember black NFL players typically make up between 50 and 70% of the active rosters. So a system that by design makes it harder for black players to qualify for settlements is going to effectively save the NFL tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars.
Whoa, so they're basically saying that black people aren't as smart as white people, so when they don't do as well on these tests, it's not dementia, they're just not smart.
If the doctor decides to add race as a component that they grade on, which they can on a lot of these tests, and on a few of them they have to, it can have a pretty significant effect to the point where a white player and a black player who have the exact same raw score, the black player score can go so high that he would not qualify for a payout, whereas the white player would.
But if I can say one thing, I will say that it does demystify the presidency when you know the president. I know the president personally. The president knows me. Anyone who knows me should probably not be president.
Fun stuff.
Hey, thank you very much.
Tom Green. Like I told you this last time, and I'll say it again. You look good. You look like you're taking care of yourself out there.
Thank you.
I can't say for most of the entertainers that come through here.
I've kind of, I won't say I've quit drinking, because that would be an exaggeration, but I've cut back to the point that it almost feels like I've quit.
I think you told me last time you were here that you'd been on The Apprentice and that Trump fired you.
Actually, he fired me because I went out drinking with Dennis Rodman on the night I was the project manager.
We're talking to comedian Tom Green, who's at Cobb's this weekend.
So,
it's an interesting threesome right there. Dennis Rodman and
I had like a like an alliance against me. Everyone gets mad at each other on these shows.
Kind of like Survivor kind of deal.
Yeah, it's like that,
Yeah.
So I had like Herschel Walker, Clint Black, Scott Hamilton. They were all mad at me. Okay, they refused to do their job. We had to sell wedding dresses. I had to sell more wedding dresses than Khloe Kardashian and Joan Rivers' team, and so I volunteered to be the project manager. And then at the end of the day, with cameras rolling, Dennis Rodman said, "Hey, you want to go get a drink?" And I knew that would be kind of funny to say yes, and we did. And I slept through my alarm the next day, and Jesse James called, angry at me, and I got
Sandra
fired.
Bullock's Jesse James.
Yeah, and I got fired. It was a whole, everyone was there.
Jeez, that's an amazing collection of oddballs right there.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, it's surreal, I'm sure, for everybody that Trump is the president, right? But but for me, a little bit more so because I know him, and hung out with him. And
is he as sociopathic in person as he appears in public?
He's just exactly the same as you would expect.
Will you commit to making sure that there is a peaceful transferal of power after the election?
Well, we're going to have to see what happens.
That is the White House correspondent for Playboy, Brian Karem, pushing Trump on whether he would leave office peacefully. Brian, what were you thinking when you asked that question?
Well, there had been several articles in many newspapers, and I think The Atlantic had done a piece on the peaceful transition of power. And it was always a question in the back of everyone's mind because he was already screaming voter fraud and the election hadn't even occurred yet. What happened that day basically is I showed up at the White House. Trump came in and started talking, and then I raised my hand, and I didn't, I'm in the last seat in the last row, and I didn't think he'd call on me, but he called on me first. So I said, okay, let's roll. And that was the only question in my mind. Yeah. And so my question was, win, lose, or draw, will you agree to a peaceful transfer of power?
Every night from 8 p.m. until 11, you can catch Chris Hayes, Rachel Maddow, and our next guest, Lawrence O'Donnell. He hosts The Last Word on MSNBC. He has a couple books out, Deadly Force, which is about police shooting. Lawrence, good to have you here.
Great to be here. Thanks.
This book, it's at the heart of Colin Kaepernick's argument and a real problem in this country, police shootings. I'm a son of a police officer, but it was from an entirely different time. What's changed with policing in this country? Is it the militarization? Is it the training? Is it the fact that, it's a much different world?
Well, it makes two of us as a son of a cop. My father was a Boston cop, and he ended up going to college and law school nights in Boston, and he then became a lawyer and a pretty successful criminal defense lawyer. And this case came to him where the widow of a man who was killed by police, a black man who was killed in a black neighborhood in Boston, and he saw right away that this was a bad shooting, and he saw that as a cop. What you see in that story from 35 years ago is that very little has changed. This has been going on quite literally forever.
This is the Chip Franklin Show.